Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with you for the next 26 minutes or so. And it was just a few weeks back, I was lamenting, I don't know if it was on Foul Territory, in print, maybe just to friends, lamenting that the races were all but decided, that the playoff field was all but set. Ha! So much for that. We are looking at one of the wilder weeks potentially in recent MLB history. Both wild cards are still in play. The AL Central is big time in play. And the AL West seemingly closer to being decided, but not over just yet. And actually, the NL West is in that category as well. So there's a lot to discuss, but I want to start with the NL wildcard and the question I posed in my column today. Which would be more embarrassing? The Tigers blowing a 15.5 game lead to a division opponent, that would be the Cleveland Guardians, or the Mets missing the playoffs entirely with a $340 million payroll. Now, the column is an exploration of which is more embarrassing and kind of discusses each team's predicament, but the Mets thing is stunning to say the least. They were 45-24 on June 12th. They had a 2.79 rotation ERA on June 12th. That was the best in the majors. The record was the best in the majors. Since then, the Mets are 35 and 53. 35 and 53. That is tied with the Chicago White Sox for the fourth worst record in the majors. Their rotation ERA also ranks in the bottom five. They have essentially collapsed, and not like they did in 2007 when they lost seven, or when they blew a 7-game lead with 17 to play. This has been a slow burn. It's really been 3 months now of inadequate play. So the Reds are not exactly a team sprinting to the finish, though they've won 10 of their last 15. It's a team that's basically a sub-500 club since early August. But they've won 10 of their last 15. The Mets have gone 4-11, including losing 2 of 3 to the Nationals this week. And you see where the wildcard standings are right now. Diamondbacks just 1 game back. The Reds hold the tiebreaker over the Mets. So as we say at this time of year, the Reds effectively control their own destiny. Of course, these things can change. And we might as well look at the remaining schedules as well, because they will be telling for, of course, all of these teams. The Reds are in a decent spot, as I wrote today. 3 versus Pittsburgh at home, and then 3 at Milwaukee, in a time when Milwaukee probably will be really close to clinching the best overall record and the number 1 seed if they haven't done it already by then. They've got a 3-game lead over the Phillies in that race. The Mets, 3 at the Cubs, 3 at the Marlins, who they only lead by 4 games right now, by the way. And the Diamondbacks, who have had a trying schedule, the most trying schedule of all these teams from the beginning. They host the Dodgers for 3, and then they're at San Diego for 3. San Diego, by that point, should have clinched, and we'll see what the Dodgers come up with this week as well. So the NL wildcard race, as I've written, it is brought to you by the New York Mets. The only reason all of this is happening is because the Mets have stumbled in a way that no one anticipated, and it's a stumble that will be one of the more embarrassing episodes in franchise history if it indeed ends up with this team obviously missing the playoffs, if it ends up with this team getting knocked out early. The Mets are not simply in a good place. Now, the AL Central, this is the other question I had, or the part of the question that I had. The Tigers. Where are the Tigers on the embarrassment scale? Pretty high, I would suggest. Now, they still are in a position where they have a 1-game lead over the Cleveland Guardians, but they're coming off an 0-6 homestand against Cleveland and Atlanta. They're 26-37 since July 8th. These 3 games against Cleveland at Progressive Field will obviously be critical, and you just wonder if the Tigers are going to be able to snap out of it. Their pitching, their rotation, and bullpen has essentially fallen apart in September, and their offense has not been very good in this long stretch as well. And here are the Guardians, one of the worst offensive contenders you'll ever see. What I mean by that is they've got one of the worst offenses for a contender you'll ever see. They are tied for 27th in the majors in runs per game, 27th. And as I wrote, there are only 3 teams in Major League history, and actually this goes to the start of the divisional play era, that have made the playoffs with an offense that bad. And 2 of those teams, 2 of the 3, did it in the 2020 season when there were 16 playoff teams, a shortened 60-game season, and all of that. So it's almost like that doesn't even count. So it's pretty hard to do what the Guardians are doing with an offense of the nature that they have, but they're doing it. The Tigers are letting them back in. So, as I wrote, if the Tigers miss the playoffs after being up on July 8th, they were up 14 games on both the Royals and Twins at that time and 15 and a half on the Guardians. If they miss the playoffs after holding a 14-game lead, it will be the largest blown lead by a team that did not win its division or league in modern AL/NL history. An all-time collapse. So again, which is more embarrassing? I'm not sure which is more embarrassing, but neither one of them is too good. So we're looking at a crazy AL Central race. We're looking at a crazy NL wildcard race. And in the AL West, quite interesting development over the weekend. The Mariners and Astros go into the season or the weekend series tied for the AL West lead. And you're thinking, this series is in Houston. Maybe in this particular case, the Astros will rise up again and figure out a way to hold down the Mariners. The Astros, and we're going to talk about them more in the Inside Dish, have been a dominant team really since 2016. From 2017 on, and yes, I know there was the scandal in there, but they've dominated even after that. So you always have to assume, and we've been talking about this all year, that the Astros are going to figure it out, that you've got to knock them out and all of this stuff, that they have the pedigree. Well, the Mariners led for 26 of 27 innings in this series. They swept this series. They are a team that right now leads the AL West by 3 games with 6 to play. They are in an absolutely commanding position. Now, is it possible things go amiss? Yeah, it's surely possible. Things can always change. But the Mariners are really looking good. Cal Raleigh, number 58 last night. His MVP candidacy grows by the day, grows more legitimate by the day, more real by the day. And what we're seeing here is a team that did some good things at the deadline and are benefiting from it, even though Eugenio Suarez really hasn't been the guy that he was with Arizona. So the AL West, the Astros have another path to get to the playoffs, of course. The path would be through the wild card. And let's look at the AL wild card standings so I can explain exactly where we are. The Red Sox are in this mix too, this jumbled mess of a wild card race. Now, the Red Sox have a game lead over the Guardians and Astros. It is possible the Astros don't get a wild card either if both the Guardians and Tigers qualify, and that's possible. Let's say the Guardians win the AL Central or the Tigers win the AL Central. The other team could be the wild card. And the Red Sox, their situation is not exactly precarious, but they have to keep going too because those two teams are right behind them. So again, it's going to be a wacky, crazy end to the season. It's the kind of season or the kind of conclusion we all kind of hope for at the start of the year. Now, if you're a Mets fan, if you're a Tigers fan, you're not happy right now. I totally get it. But from a broader baseball perspective, you want excitement. And as I said, a couple of weeks ago, it did not look like we were going to be anywhere near this kind of excitement. The Mets looked like they were a lock. The Tigers looked like they were a lock. The Astros were in a much better position. And all of these things that have happened, it didn't seem like they were going to happen. So let's look now at the AL remaining schedules. We'll close it out with this. Cleveland, 3 versus Detroit at home. We've talked about that. 3 versus Texas at home also. Detroit, not such an easy go here. They're on the road for 6 games at Cleveland and Boston. And then the Astros, they're on the road too in Sacramento, which is not an easy place to play against an offense that is not easy to deal with, the Athletics. And then 3 at the Los Angeles Angels. So there you have it. That's the final week. It's going to be a wild one. And I would expect that most fans are pretty excited about what might end up going down.
When you think Fair Harbor, you should think soft. You should think buttery liner. But it's not just the bathing suits or the shorts. It's also sweatshirts like the one that I'm wearing right now, Kratz. It is stupid soft.
It's ridiculous that a shirt that can, 1, keep you warm, 2, be so soft, and 3, so lightweight, like the collar, everything. You don't even feel like you actually have a hoodie on, but you do.
It is a lightweight hoodie. and it feels incredible. So you should go get one yourself. Also, for bathing suits, for shorts, for whatever clothes that you're interested in where you want to basically feel like you're not wearing them, but you are, that's what Fair Harbor can bring to the table. So head to fairharborclothing.com/foul20 and use code FOUL20 for 20% off your order. That's Fair Harbor, HARBOR, clothing.com/foul20 for 20% off your order, and make sure you use that promo code FOUL20.
Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk maybe about a story I've written, about a trend in the game, something going on. And today I want to talk about the Astros, but I want to start off by talking about the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'll explain and try to weave it all together. So back in spring training, I wrote a column basically saying that if the Brewers stumble this season, it would be the responsibility of owner Mark Attanasio because he had not spent hardly anything during the offseason. Now, after that, they signed Jose Quintana, 1 year, $4.25 million. But my premise in that column was, hey, at some point, it's going to catch up with Attanasio if people keep leaving and you don't replace them with quality people in return. Well, obviously, the Brewers and Mark Attanasio are sitting pretty right now. And I approached Attanasio in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago and I said, listen, man, I'm never writing anything like that again. I'm done. I've given up. You win. And yeah, he does win. They've got the best record in the majors and he's done it his way. No question about it. So I was thinking as I prepare for this segment, maybe I should have written that column about Astros owner Jim Crane. Because look at what has happened to the Astros over the last 5 years. Springer gone to free agency. Correa gone to free agency. Tucker traded. Bregman gone to free agency. Those are 4 significant players, parts of the Astros core, part of the reason they were so successful in the late 2010s and early 2020s. And now those players were essentially gone. So I thought about that, and I thought about Crane and some of the signings that they've made under him in this time. Jose Abreu was not a good signing. Rafael Montero, not a good signing. Both were free agents. And you wonder, okay, as the Astros sit here today in this precarious spot, seemingly facing an uphill fight for sure in the AL West and even threatening to fall out of the playoff picture entirely because their wildcard chances are looking bad too. They don't hold any of the tiebreakers in these scenarios. And when you consider it all and wonder and ponder the Astros situation, it almost seems amazing that it went on for this long. And what happened to the Astros this season? It took like this incredible cavalcade of injuries, an amazing run of injuries that really no team can withstand, and they've withstood it actually pretty well. Now, as I wrote, or as I said in the first segment, they went into that weekend series with Seattle tied. Now they are no longer tied. They are 3 games back, and they appear to be ready to be dethroned as AL West champions in a full season for the first time since 2016. Think about that. They've won every AL West title in a 160-game 2-game season since 2017. That's really hard to do. And yes, I'll say it again. We can talk all we want about the trash cans, and we have, and we will, but not all of this was accomplished in that fashion. So you wonder and you think about this team and where they are right now with a weakened farm system and with kind of an aging, injured core, Altuve and certainly Yordan Alvarez. How do they get back and how did this all happen? Well, according to Baseball Prospectus, and this was in Chandler Rome's story today, no team has lost more value to injuries this season than the Houston Astros. It's not even close. And the Astros, at one point, had 18 players on the injured list. This was in late July. At that time, 8 starting pitchers were on the injured list. They lost Yordan Alvarez for almost 3 months. Jeremy Pena, out for significant time. Isaac Paredes, the same. And Jake Myers, a pretty good center fielder, a guy who emerged this year. He too was out for a long period of time. Josh Hader's been out since August 8th. On and on it has gone. I believe it was last week when I talked about Joe Espada being the favorite for AL Manager of the Year. Well, he still might win it, but it's not going to look as pretty now if he does. And frankly, right now, Stephen Vogt in Cleveland, John Schneider in Toronto, there are other candidates who are looking better. AJ Hinch was the popular choice for a while, too. That's how topsy-turvy this whole thing has become. So the Astros, they acquired at the deadline Carlos Correa. They reacquired him. They brought in Jesus Sanchez, who has not been much of a contributor at all, and Ramon Urias the same. He has not done much at all. The biggest issue for this team, and it has to do somewhat with the Alvarez injury and with the loss of Pena for a month, but not completely. The offense is the biggest issue, and this has been a perplexing thing with the Astros. Now, Paredes was brought in, as was Christian Walker, to improve their plate discipline, to make them less of a free-swinging operation. Paredes is a guy who sees a ton of pitches. Walker had that reputation as well, but it hasn't happened for the Astros. And for whatever reason, their offense all season long, with Alvarez without, has not really clicked. They are 27th in the majors in runs per game since the deadline. 27th since adding Carlos Correa and Jesus Sanchez. That's not what they intended when they made those moves. They were trying to bolster their offense, and it just hasn't happened. So the Astros, is this the end? Well, we're going to find out over the next, week or so. But it's been an amazing run. And even this year, it's been amazing what they've accomplished considering what they've been up against. And all teams go through this. You guys know this. All teams have years that are off years. It's just been such a long time since the Astros had one of these seasons. And it looks like this is turning out to be one of them. Even if they get in, how far are they going to go? Framber Valdez has struggled in the last, month or so. Hunter Brown, legitimate ace, but they don't have much out there beyond those guys. So it's been a tough season for the Astros, no doubt. It's been the kind of season with the Astros that we just haven't seen from them in a long, long time. All right, back with Grillin Ken right after this.
Todd Father, you and me grew up in Jersey. We liked to collect cards, but the way the process got was ridiculous. You open up a pack, there's a bunch of cards you don't care about. Then you want to get certain ones graded. Takes forever, right? Then you want to maybe sell one. It's such a to-do. Arena Club has been the solution for us.
Arena Club has been a solution for everybody. You go online, go to Arena Club, and you check out what they have. Put a little cash down, and you might get one of the best cards that you've ever seen in your life, an autographed card. And guess what? If you don't like the card, easily you could sell it back and make a little cash. You never know what to expect. It's a cool way of doing it. You're going to get a surprise every time. And if you're into cards, this is something you really need to get into.
Right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL like Todd Father's talking about with those slab packs. Every pack has a grail. That's at least 20x the price of the pack. Check it out.
BetMGM players will receive an MLB Parlay Boost token. To use the token, add a parlay wager made up of entirely MLB bets to your bet slip and activate the token. Score extra winnings if your wager that was made with the Parlay Boost token wins. Gambling problem or concern? There is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Time now for Grillin Ken, the part of the show where I answer your questions. Let's get right to them. First question from JS. Big one. Will Ben Cherington be back with the Pittsburgh Pirates? I do not know the answer to that, Jay. But after 6 seasons and 6 essentially disappointing seasons, the Pirates certainly would be justified if they made a change. Now, that said, they have built a collection of young arms that is really the envy of the sport. They also have played better under Don Kelly than they did under Derek Shelton. They've had their moments since the change in managers. I don't know that it's enough to save Ben Cherington's job, and I don't know that it should be. Ben Cherington is one of the most respected people in the game. He's a guy everyone will tell you is of extremely high character. At the same time, the performance is what the performance is, and they have not done enough with limited resources to maybe justify him staying on as GM. You look at Cleveland, you look at Milwaukee, you look at Tampa Bay in most years. You look at Cincinnati right now. These are all teams in similar markets, and they're doing better than the Pirates have. So, obviously, this is question number 1 for the Pittsburgh Pirates when the season ends. I would not be I would not be surprised by a change, and I would also not be surprised if Bob Nutting stayed the course. He's not exactly the most predictable owner in the sport. Actually, I should correct that. Pirates fans would say he is the most predictable owner in the sport in terms of spending money. I don't know that he's that predictable with regard to what he might do in the GM spot. All right, the next question. This one is from Armand, who asks, if the Mets and Tigers don't make it, do you see coaching staff firings with Hinch and Mendoza staying? That would probably be, Armand, the way that these teams would go. And certainly with the Mets, I don't know where the dysfunction or the problem is exactly. And I talked last week about maybe a chemistry issue being there, and that's not on the coaches. But in a situation like this, if the two teams do indeed miss the playoffs or end in the playoffs in a disappointing fashion, I would expect certainly that there would be changes. David Stearns has been pretty public about backing Carlos Mendoza. Joel Sherman had a note today in the New York Post in which Stearns said again that Mendoza has done a very good job. Doesn't mean that others below him will not be held responsible for this. Hinch, too, would seemingly be one of the more secure managers in the game, but they too could look for coaching changes. I would not expect, if these two teams end the season in disappointment, that things are just going to remain status quo. That is rarely the way it works in baseball. All right, next question from RPG Man 45. If you had to pick who's out in the Astros, Tigers, Red Sox, or Guardians? Wow. Now, this is an AJ Przinsky type question, the kind where you just put me on the spot. If I had to guess right now, I'd say the Tigers because they're playing the worst of these teams. Now, you could say the Astros are as well. Yeah, that would be a fair point to make. But my hunch is the Tigers just because they're going to go into Cleveland, and I don't know how that's going to go for them. And then they're going to go into Boston, needing to win, I would presume, at that point. And I don't know how that's going to go for them because the Red Sox also will be playing for a playoff berth in that scenario at Fenway Park, where they are very good. That's my guess. Watch, I'll be wrong. I'm usually wrong when I make predictions of this nature. All right, let's go to the next one now. This one comes from Foul Territory, which asks, will the Orioles keep Tony Mansolino? I don't know the answer to this question, and certainly the Orioles have played better under Mansolino than they did under Brandon Hyde. Since late May, they are above 500, and that's pretty good. Now, you can say the young players have stagnated, the young hitters have stagnated, but he stabilized that team. And in addition to that, we've seen in the second half, Trevor Rogers emerge as one of the best pitchers in the entire sport, and Kyle Bradish come back from Tommy John surgery along with Tyler Wells. Not all of that, of course, is Mansolino's doing, but it's the stuff that he inherited. Now, what I like about Mansolino is what he told us in our Fox interview with him last Thursday night when we were at Camden Yards. I asked him about being an interim, and he said my approach was this. I was going to do the job not to save my job or not to help myself get an extension. I was going to do the right thing. So what he means by that is do the right thing by players, make the right decisions for players and for the team, and not necessarily make decisions that might help enhance his chances of returning. I love that. And to me, that is the sign of someone who is secure in himself and someone who has a feel and someone who seemingly has the respect of that clubhouse. Now, I expect Mike Elias will at least conduct some kind of search, but he might have the guy that he wants right in the dugout at this moment. All right, we'll take one more question and then we'll say bye-bye for the day. Let's see what we got here. This one comes from John, who says, which do baseball fans love more, seeing their team win or laughing at other teams or other fan bases upset with their team losing? Fans should want their teams to win more than the other teams to suffer. But back in my days as a fan, I knew that I enjoyed a great deal when other teams, other rivals of the team I was rooting for suffered. So I can see both sides of it, but yeah, let's be positive here. Let's root for the teams that we want to win, and let's not just take extreme joy at others' expense, even though sometimes that's a lot of fun. All right, that's it for today's show. We will be back Thursday, our usual live show, 12:30 Eastern. Myself and Alana Rizzo. Have a great week, everyone, and let's see what the heck baseball has in store for us the rest of the way.